Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Joel here with as many reviews as possible, and today we're doing the review of the Reebok Floatride Run. Alright guys, so earlier this week I did the review of the Reebok Harmony Roads, and I thought they were an excellent running shoe. In that review I mentioned that I was looking for a shoe to do Murph in, and the Reebok Harmony Roads ended up being my final choice. But another shoe that I was testing as well was the Reebok Floatride Run. The Floatrides are actually Reebok's flagship model. They have something very unique about them, and that is the float midsole. But before we get to that, let's talk about the upper of the Floatrides. So I thought that the Reebok Harmony Roads were a pretty bad looking shoe, but on the contrary, I think that the Floatrides are a very good looking shoe. The upper is made out of two materials. There's this rear foam, and then the front area is constructed with Reebok's Ultra Knit, which is like their version of Prime Knit or Fly Knit. It has a little bit of elasticity to it. It's definitely not as plush and soft as Prime Knit is, but it's fairly comfortable and it does a pretty good job of holding your foot in the place that it needs to be. The rear area, like I said, is a foam-like material that keeps its shape pretty well, keeps your heel where it needs to be in the back. The mid area is this cage, which is like a polyurethane material, and that's what gives you a little bit of structural integrity in the middle area of the shoe. It also is where the laces tighten up. I got my Floatrides in a size 9.5, just like my Harmony Roads, and I feel like these shoes fit me right on the money. I usually wear a 10 in nanos, a 9.5 in metcons, and I would say that these shoes run very true to size. They're not narrow shoes, and they're a little bit on the wider side, kind of like the Harmony Roads. Now the real star of the show is definitely Reebok's new Float midsole. This is Reebok's version of a high energy returning midsole, like Adidas's Boost or Nike's Lunar Lawn. To the touch, it actually feels a lot like Adidas's Boost. It's very, very soft and squishy, but when you have the shoe on, it's a little bit less plush than Boost. Now when it comes down to performance of the Floatride runs, why didn't I choose these to do Murph in? In the review of the Reebok Harmony Roads, I talked a little bit more about how I like a little bit more stability in my shoes, and I just felt like those had a little bit more stability over the Floatrides. Though the Float midsole is a little bit more plush than the Harmony Roads, it's not all that much more. I just preferred the ride of the Harmony Roads, especially when doing 300 air squats. I did, however, do the workout Helen in the Floatrides, and I PR'd my time at a little bit under 9 minutes, and I thought these shoes were plenty stable enough for the 21 kettlebell swings in all the 3 rounds of Helen. I did do a little bit of distance running in the Floatrides, and once again I preferred the more responsive and stable ride of the Harmony Roads, but if you needed something a little bit more soft and plush, then definitely check out the Floatrides. They are still a very good shoe with a very good energy returning midsole. I do, however, prefer the 8mm drop of the Floatrides to the 10mm drop of the Harmony Roads. The traction of the Floatrides is very good. It's got an outsole very similar to Adidas's Boost. Now one thing that I'm not certain about yet about the Reebok Floatrides is the durability, because the elastic where your foot goes into the shoe is already stretched out on mine. I tend to slip my shoes on without untying them, and I think over time this elastic is going to get really stretched out, and it's not going to provide you with as good a fit as it did when you first got the shoe. The Reebok Floatrides retail for $150, which is $30 more than the Harmony Roads, and for the money I would personally go with the Harmony Roads. But if you didn't like the way that the Harmony Roads looked, or you needed something that was a little bit more plush, then I would definitely check out the Reebok Floatrides. I still think they are a very good value for the money. Overall, I think the Floatrides are a great performing shoe. They're just not my style, but I can't wait to see what Reebok does with the new Float midsole. I think that the Float midsole would be amazing on their new Zoku runner, but I'll save my opinions on that for the Zoku runner video. If you guys have any questions about the Reebok Floatride runs, feel free to leave them in the comments section. As always guys, please hit that like button, subscribe, and thanks for watching.